On June 30th, 2025, a new wind sweeps across the Sahel, signaling dramatic change and shifting alliances. Russian flags now flutter in Bamako and Ouagadougou, marking a bold challenge to decades of Western dominance. This is not distant diplomacy. It's a ground-level transformation affecting millions. Russia's deepening role in Mali and Burkina Faso is one of the most significant geopolitical shifts Africa has seen in years. Decades of Western-led security efforts failed to stop Islamist insurgencies, leaving local populations disillusioned with partners like France. Into this void, Russia steps in, offering security without lectures on democracy and promising partnership between equals. Military juntas in both countries, desperate for results, have eagerly embraced Moscow's approach. This isn't just a change in foreign policy. It's a new front in the global power struggle between Russia and the West. The Sahel, rich in resources and strategically vital, is now a key battleground. Russia's model prioritizes state sovereignty and military solutions, in stark contrast to the West's focus on democracy and institution building. The long-term consequences are unknown, but the stakes are enormous for Africa's future. Understanding Russia's actions here is crucial to grasping the new dynamics of global power. The story of Russia and the Sahel is, ultimately, a story about Africa's future.
Russia's interest in Africa isn't new, but its current strategy is a sharp break from the past. After the Cold War, Russia retreated from Africa. But under Putin, it's back, seeking global influence, economic partnerships, and a challenge to Western dominance. Africa's 54 UN votes and resource wealth make it a prime target. The recent coups in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger gave Moscow an opening. While the West condemned the juntas and imposed sanctions, Russia offered support, no questions asked. For isolated leaders like Mali's Goïta and Burkina Faso's Traoré, Russia became a lifeline, weapons, diplomatic cover, and a new narrative. Moscow presents itself as a pragmatic partner in the fight against terrorism, free from colonial baggage. This approach resonates with both leaders and many citizens, frustrated by years of insecurity and Western lectures. Russia's strategy is part of a broader doctrine exploit cracks in the Western-led order and offer an alternative. By aligning with the UNTAS, Russia undermines French influence, gains access to minerals, and secures a military foothold. The Sahel's coups aren't just a backdrop. They're the foundation of Russia's new African playbook. The stakes are high, and the region's future is being rewritten.
In Mali, Russia's involvement is direct and multifaceted. The Wagner Group, now Africa Corps, arrived after French troops withdrew, training Malian forces and joining counterterrorism operations. Russia supplied military hardware, signaling a serious commitment to Mali's security. Alongside boots on the ground, Russia launched a relentless information campaign, flooding social media with pro-Russian, anti-French content. This propaganda has fueled public support for the junta and made opposition difficult. Diplomatically, Russia shields Mali at the UN and promises investment, giving the junta international legitimacy. But the reality is brutal military gains have come with high civilian casualties and documented abuses, like the Mura massacre. Russia's approach prioritizes military victory, but at a steep human cost. The long-term impact on Mali's stability remains deeply uncertain. Burkina Faso's story mirrors Mali's, but with a more recent timeline and initially quieter Russian involvement. After two coups in 2020-22, Captain Traoré cut ties with France and turned to Moscow for arms and support. Russian military instructors and equipment soon followed, formalizing a new security partnership. The Malian model was replicated: empower the army, provide air support, and launch an information campaign celebrating the Russia-Burkina Faso alliance. Public demonstrations with Russian flags became common, bolstering the junta's legitimacy. Promises of Russian investment in gold mining and even nuclear power have been floated, offering hope amid economic hardship. For Burkina Faso, the pivot to Moscow is a high-stakes bet on a Russian-backed security strategy. The country's future now hinges on this new alliance. Russia's approach in the Sahel stands in stark contrast to that of France and the U.S. The West offered military aid tied to democracy and human rights, but condemned the coups and cut support when juntas took power. Russia's model is transactional and unconditional security assistance in exchange for alignment, with no lectures on governance. This appeals to authoritarian leaders eager to consolidate power without external interference. Russian forces integrate closely with local armies and operate with fewer restrictions, leading to faster gains but higher risks of abuses. Western operations, by contrast, were slower and more constrained by rules of engagement. Russia's information warfare is also more effective, using social media and local influencers to spread simple, resonant messages. By framing itself as an anti-colonial ally, Russia has won over many urban hearts and minds. The West, meanwhile, struggles to communicate its goals and is often seen as distant or neo-colonial. The result? Russia is winning the narrative battle in the Sahel. This new competition is reshaping alliances and the region's future. The stakes are not just local, they're global. The Sahel is now a frontline in the contest for influence between Russia and the West. For the juntas in Mali and Burkina Faso, Russia is a lifeline, military support, diplomatic cover, and a new narrative of sovereignty. State media and officials hail the alliance as a break from French domination and a step toward true independence. In the capitals, many citizens welcome Russia, hoping for security and national pride after years of violence. Pro-Russian demonstrations are common, fueled by pan-Africanist and anti-imperialist rhetoric. But in rural conflict zones, enthusiasm is muted, fear and resentment grow as violence continues. Now from new actors. Civil society voices worry that the Russian alliance entrenches authoritarianism and ignores the root causes of conflict. Critics are often silenced, making it hard to gauge true public sentiment. The reality is a mix of hope, fear, and uncertainty as ordinary people weigh the costs and benefits of this new partnership. Russia's intervention has redrawn the Sahel's security map. With French and European forces gone, regional counterterrorism efforts have collapsed, replaced by fragmented state-led campaigns reliant on Moscow. Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger have formed the Alliance of Sahel states, openly defying ECOWAS and deepening their Russian ties. West Africa is now split, a pro-Russian military-led bloc versus Western alliance states. On the ground, national armies, backed by Russia, have launched offensives, reclaiming territory but escalating violence. Jihadist groups retaliate, targeting civilians and fueling mass displacement. The conflict is more brutal, with rising civilian deaths and little regard for humanitarian law. Critics warn that heavy-handed tactics risk alienating communities and driving more recruits to extremists. Reliance on Russia creates new vulnerabilities. If Moscow's support wanes, these states could be left dangerously exposed. The Sahel's new landscape is unstable, and the future remains uncertain. The Sahel's upheaval is sending shockwaves across Africa and beyond. Coastal West African states fear jihadist spillover and political contagion as the coup and pivot to Russia model gains traction. Globally, the Sahel is now a microcosm of great power competition, with Russia's success challenging the Western-led order. This shift could inspire similar moves in other regions, making the world more unpredictable and multipolar. Russia's influence over the Sahel's mineral wealth could impact global markets and disrupt regional economies. For Europe, instability means potential migration surges and security threats on its doorstep. The events force a rethinking of foreign intervention, sovereignty, and the balance between security and democracy. The answers forged in the Sahel will shape Africa's and the world's future partnerships. The Russian footprint in Mali and Burkina Faso marks a disruptive shift with global consequences. For the juntas, Moscow's support is a strategic win, unconditional aid, and a new narrative of sovereignty. Russia's mix of military support and propaganda has found fertile ground among leaders and many citizens desperate for change. But this path is risky. Civilian casualties are rising, and violence is escalating. The collapse of regional cooperation has left a dangerous security vacuum. Diplomatically, Africa is more fractured, caught in a renewed great power rivalry. The West must rethink its approach as old assumptions no longer hold. The choices made in Bamako and Ouagadougou will shape not just Africa's future, but the global order. The world watches as the Sahel's fate and its lessons unfold.